The scream that broke the silence of the mansion was not loud. It was barely a whisper at first, but for Evelyn, it was enough to send her heart racing. She had been a nanny for almost 20 years, yet nothing unsettled her like the sound of a child crying in the middle of the night. She hurried across the polished marble floors of the West Wing, the soles of her slippers tapping faintly, her hands clutching the shawl around her shoulders. The Halstons' home was the kind of place people wrote about in magazines, chandeliers dripping crystals like frozen rain, rooms bigger than entire apartments, staircases that seemed to go on forever. But tonight, the grandeur felt cold. Something was wrong. She reached little Leela's bedroom, the 8-year-old daughter of the Halstons, millionaires with more influence than most governors, and paused. The door was cracked open, a thin line of golden light spilling into the hallway. Evelyn knocked softly before stepping inside. Leela was sitting upright on her bed, her small frame trembling beneath silk sheets, tears streaking down her pale face. And then Evelyn saw it, a dark red stain spreading across the front of Leela's pale pink pajamas. For a moment, Evelyn froze. The sight clawed at something deep inside her, something that whispered of danger, of secrets, of truths children should never have to carry. She moved closer, keeping her voice calm even as her pulse hammered. "Baby, what happened?" she asked gently, brushing Leela's curls from her face. Leela opened her mouth, but no words came. Her lips quivered, her hands clutched at the fabric, trying to cover the stain as if hiding it could make it disappear. And then she whispered, so quietly Evelyn almost didn't hear, "Don't tell Mommy." Those 4 words were the beginning of everything. Evelyn had worked for the Halstons for nearly 3 years. On the outside, the family looked perfect. Richard Halston was a real estate tycoon, a man who built empires out of glass towers. His wife, Cassandra, was the image of elegance, often photographed at charity galas with a glass of champagne in hand. And then there was Leela, their only child, the golden girl. People assumed she had everything a child could want: toys imported from Europe, private tutors, summer trips to Paris. But Evelyn knew better. Money could buy silk sheets, but it couldn't buy tenderness. Evelyn had grown up in a very different world. She was raised in a small, 2-room house in Atlanta, where her mother worked double shifts at a diner and still found time to sit at the edge of Evelyn's bed every night, humming old gospel songs until she fell asleep. Life had been hard, but love had been abundant. Evelyn carried that memory like a torch, and she poured that same warmth into Leela, because she saw in the little girl's eyes what she had once seen in her own reflection: loneliness. That night, after calming Leela down and helping her change into clean clothes, Evelyn quietly washed the stained pajamas in the laundry room. She thought maybe it was a nosebleed, or perhaps a cut. But something about Leela's plea, "Don't tell Mommy," gnawed at her. Children didn't hide accidents unless they feared the reaction. And Leela's fear wasn't small, it was consuming. Over the next week, Evelyn began noticing other things. Bruises on Leela's arms that didn't match the story of falling in dance class. The way she winced when anyone raised their voice. The way she avoided her mother's gaze. Evelyn knew something was terribly wrong, but she also knew the danger of speaking out in a house like this. The Halstons weren't just rich, they were powerful. The challenge weighed on her: speak up and risk losing her job, her reputation, maybe even her safety, or stay silent and betray the little girl. Who trusted her? The first confrontation came sooner than she expected. One afternoon, while preparing Leela's snack, Evelyn heard Cassandra's sharp voice from the sitting room. "You're worthless, Leela, always clumsy, always ruining everything. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a daughter who can't even dance properly?" Evelyn's hands tightened around the plate she was holding. She peeked into the room just as Cassandra raised her hand. Before the blow landed, Evelyn rushed forward. "Mrs. Halston," she said quickly, her voice firm but respectful. "Leela was with me earlier. She's just tired. Perhaps she needs rest instead of rehearsal today." Cassandra froze, her manicured hand hovering midair. Her eyes narrowed at Evelyn, but after a tense moment, she let her hand fall. "Fine," she muttered, grabbing her handbag. "See that she practices tomorrow. I have a fundraiser to attend." When Cassandra stormed out, Evelyn knelt beside Leela, who was trembling. "You're safe, baby," she whispered. "I won't let anyone hurt you." But inside, Evelyn knew words weren't enough. Something had to change. The days that followed tested her more than she could have imagined. Richard Halston was rarely home, but when he was, the atmosphere shifted. His temper was like a loaded gun, silent until it exploded. Evelyn noticed how Leela flinched at the sound of his footsteps, how she shrank when he entered the room. One evening, after dinner, Evelyn found Leela hiding in the laundry room, tears streaking her cheeks. She confessed, in a shaky voice, that the red stains hadn't been from a cut at all. They were from her mother shoving her against a table edge after she spilled juice on the carpet. The impact had caused internal bleeding. Evelyn felt her whole body go cold. She had seen neglect before, even harsh discipline. But this was abuse, and it was escalating. She wrestled with what to do. Reporting the Halstons could backfire. Who would believe her, a black nanny, over a wealthy white family adored by the press? She could lose her livelihood. Worse, if the Halstons suspected her, they might take Leela away from her completely. Still, Evelyn couldn't stay silent. She began documenting everything, dates, times, photos of bruises when she could discreetly take them. She also started researching child advocacy hotlines at night, when the house was quiet. Each click of the keyboard felt like rebellion. The breaking point came on a stormy night. Richard returned home furious over a failed business deal. His shouting echoed through the mansion, followed by the sound of glass shattering. Evelyn rushed upstairs to shield Leela, but before she could reach her, Richard cornered the little girl in her room. His face was red with rage, his fist clenched. Evelyn stepped between them. "Mr. Halston, that's enough." For a moment, silence filled the room. His eyes burned into hers, full of disbelief that a servant would dare stand up to him. "You forget your place," he hissed. "No, sir," Evelyn said, her voice steady though her knees shook. "It's you who's forgotten yours. You're a father." The confrontation ended only because Cassandra dragged Richard away, but Evelyn knew she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That night, after tucking Leela into bed, Evelyn made the hardest decision of her life. She called Child Protective Services. The investigation was grueling. Evelyn was interrogated, accused of fabricating stories, even threatened by the Halstons' lawyers. But she stood firm, her evidence steady. For weeks, it seemed like a hopeless fight, power against truth. Then came the hearing. Evelyn sat in the courtroom, her heart pounding, as witnesses spoke. The Halstons painted themselves as victims of a vindictive employee. But when Leela was called to the stand, the room fell silent. With trembling hands, clutching the teddy bear Evelyn had given her, Leela spoke the truth. She described the fear, the pain, the nights she cried herself to sleep. Her small voice carried more weight than all the Halstons' wealth combined. When the verdict was read, that custody would be removed and Leela placed under protective care, the sob that escaped Evelyn's chest was one of relief and sorrow all at once. The story spread like wildfire. Headlines about the Millionaire family's dark secret dominated the news. Some painted Evelyn as a hero, others accused her of betrayal. But Evelyn didn't care. What mattered was that Leela was safe. Months later, after the legal dust settled, Evelyn received an unexpected call. Leela's new foster family had requested that Evelyn remain in her life, given the bond they shared. When Evelyn saw Leela again, the little girl ran into her arms with a smile Evelyn hadn't seen in years, bright, unburdened, free. "You saved me," Leela whispered. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "No, baby," she said. "You saved yourself. I just stood beside you." The message. This story is not just about a nanny and a little girl. It's about courage, the courage to stand against power, against fear, against silence. It's about the truth that no child deserves pain, no matter how perfect the family may appear from the outside. And it's a reminder to all of us, sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who choose love, even when it costs them everything. Evelyn's story leaves us with this truth: you don't need wealth or status to make a difference. You only need a heart willing to act.